We got director of recruiting for On3 with us today, Chad Simmons. Now, we're still in the dead period. No visits are allowed for another week or so. We are almost out of it, though. We got a lot of news to cover today, so I wanted to get Chad on this video. We're going to talk some QB dominoes and then hit on a few elite wide receivers. But first, you guys do me a favor right now. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We're here talking recruiting 365 days out of the year. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button for me. All right. Bring on Chad Simmons. And Chad, I want to start with four-star quarterback Ryan Montgomery out of Findlay, Ohio. And he got a prediction over the weekend from a Gamecock insider to South Carolina. Now, when we talked about him previously, I kind of thought he was going to come off the board in February, but it sounds like a decision is not coming anytime soon. He has said that once his hoops playoffs start, which starts on March 1st, he wants to drown out all distractions, put recruiting to the side, then take a couple visits in April. So what do you think is going to happen with his decision? And also, who do you think he wants to see in April right before maybe he makes a final decision?
Yeah, Josh, I think Ryan's been, quote unquote, close to a decision for a while. I think obviously just inching towards slowly that finish line. I think he just wants to make sure he's 100%, happy with that decision and feels that school is 100% right for him and his family and his quarterback skill set and so on before he pulls the trigger. I think obviously we knew once he went into basketball playoffs, his focus was there. They're obviously still playing. He'll go on spring break right after basketball season, kind of take that week to really just kind of reset things, kind of where he's at, where he wants to go in the spring. But I think the two schools kind of remain front and center going into those trips, and that's probably Florida and South Carolina. Obviously, Georgia's been mentioned there as well. They're involved with other guys like a Julian Lewis, a Matt Zollers, other guys on their board. I've always felt Florida and South Carolina were battling for that top spot for Ryan Montgomery. And, I was told by a close source he'll take one, maybe two trips. So if he takes one, it'll be very interesting what that means. Is it to Florida, maybe South Carolina? Does he go to both one more time? He has great connections with both staffs. He's very familiar with Columbia and Gainesville. I think both those schools are still right there fighting for that top spot.
Yeah. Now, Ryan Montgomery, we're talking QB dominoes. When one quarterback makes a decision, it'll impact another. How much of what Ryan Montgomery does will impact four-star quarterback Antoine Hill out of Warner Robins, Georgia?
Obviously it depends on which way Ryan goes. Now, if he goes to South Carolina, likely no impact, there because A.J. Hill still has that open spot at the University of Florida. If he goes to Florida, I think A.J. has to divert and look a different route. There's other schools obviously on his radar, a one-time Colorado commit, but I think right now A.J. Hill has been trending towards Florida. But I think Ryan comes off the board first. So I do think he has some type of impact on A.J. Hill's recruitment. I think Florida likes both. It looks like Ryan will likely make the decision first, and that could impact A.J. Hill.
Yeah, it's crazy because I thought Hill was going to come off the board early as well, maybe a February, March decision there. Now, he already did make a decision in December, November. He committed to Colorado briefly, about 2 or 3 weeks, then he decommitted. Since opening it up, it seems like Florida is kind of the team to beat. But Hill set 2 official visits, one to Texas A&M on June 15 and one to Duke on June 23rd. So does this mean that we're looking at maybe a July or August decision from Antoine Hill?
Could be. We could. Obviously, things change. I think if you see Ryan Montgomery go a different route, outside that's not Florida, that could speed things up with A.J. Hill, maybe with Florida. I think he feels very good about that staff with Billy Napier, Ryan O'Hara. His teammate Peyton Joseph just committed to the Gators earlier this month as well. So there's some real connections there. And I think Florida remains really high on his list. But he's going to keep those relationships going. He's going to obviously A&M and Duke went down both late in January to see A.J. Hill at Houston County, and he has relationships there with the new staffs at each school with Elko, Manny Diaz, those guys at A&M and Duke. And I think you'll see other trips materialize in the spring for A.J. Hill. Georgia Tech's involved there, and he could return to Florida as well in the spring. So I do think, other schools are involved. He's going to keep those relationships building, but I do think Florida is that trendy pick still right now for A.J. Hill.
All right. Let's move on to five-star quarterback Julian Lewis. We talked about him last week, Chad, and then I did a video on Friday about these visits that he dropped. Now he's going to go see a bunch of schools that he's already seen. March 8th, Alabama, then Georgia, then Auburn, then Colorado, then USC on March 30th. I reached out to Julian. He tells me that all of these are unofficial visits. So he still has all of those official visits as well. What does this spring visit schedule tell you about his decision timeline?
Just those are the schools that are still on his radar. Those are the schools that are still competing with USC for Juju Lewis. I think, I don't think he'll take OVs to those five. I think he'll take those five in the spring. There's been talk about him going back to USC for a spring game, maybe in April, maybe even Georgia spring game in April as well. Nothing locked in for that month just yet. But I do think coming out of these trips in March, he'll really maybe have a more clear picture about who gets an OV. We expect obviously USC to get one. I fully expect Georgia, who I think is USC's biggest competitor right now, to get one. Could he take three? Could he take four? I don't think he takes five. I don't even know if he gets to four. I do think he could take three. I think the one to watch, probably the most interesting one going into March, is Alabama, the first school he trips to. We know Bama's always been high on his radar under the old staff with Nick Saban. Obviously, the change, I think, has raised more questions for the Lewis family, kind of where they fit, how do they connect and relate with Sheridan, DeBoer, that staff in Alabama, the turnover. They have a lot more questions now for that staff. To me, that's the most intriguing visit out of these five in March. We know he's been to Auburn and Georgia in January, Colorado as well. He's committed to USC. I think Bama's the one to watch here. Could they do enough to get him back for a second trip this spring or summer?
All right. Now we're going to talk Longstreet, the number 9 ranked quarterback in the country. He's out of Corona, California, and he set a visit. He plans to visit Auburn on March 23rd. Auburn's making him a priority. They really want him. May or June decision, most likely. How big of a player is Auburn? Do you think that they have a legit shot to go into California and land a 4-star quarterback?
Well, it goes obviously along with the visit. How does the visit go? I think getting him on campus obviously is step number one. I think Auburn's still trying to identify, their quarterback board. They obviously like Longstreet. Other guys like Juju Lewis are in play. TJ Lateef, another Orange County West Coast quarterback in California, is on their radar as well. Longstreet put out like a top 8, I believe, back in November. Obviously, a lot has happened since then with coaching changes on that list. Multiple schools made head coaching changes. So I think that list has kind of been scrapped. I think the two teams right now, Auburn and Texas A&M. A&M had him on campus on February 3rd weekend for the first time. He'll be back to College Station later on this spring and summer for visits. I think they're kind of setting the pace. Auburn has a chance to make a pretty strong impression on him and his family coming up in a few weeks. So I think Auburn definitely is a player now in this race, getting him on campus to make that trip and follow through with it and then make a strong impression. We'll see what happens next after that.
Yeah. Hey, Auburn has the wide receivers, so it makes sense that they're chasing after a top 10 quarterback. All right. Let's hit on a few wide receivers before I let you go, and let's stay in the state of California, where I want to talk about Marcus Harris, the number 98 overall prospect in the On3 industry rankings. He's at Modern Day High School, and he got a Texas prediction over the weekend. Now the Longhorns are trending in his recruitment. Kind of thought this was an Oregon USC battle. Is Oregon slipping in this one? And do you see any other teams across the country that could get involved?
No, I don't think Oregon's slipping at all. I'm not ready to put a prediction in or even name Texas as a favorite. I think they're obviously up there, as we've talked about what we've done before.
Inside Scoop fans, college football season is wrapping up, and it also means that the NFL is winding down as well. But there's still some great games left in the season. And you know what's not great, though? Finding last-minute tickets. Finding last-minute tickets, it can be a nightmare. Do not let this be the way your 2024 goes. That's why I'm here to tell you about Game Time. It is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the big-time matchups. The Game Time app is great. It's easy to use, and it works in any city, any team. And you get the best price guarantee. Do not stress over getting into your team's favorite games anymore. There's only so many big games, and you need to get these tickets at the best prices. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Game Time is obsessed with finding ways to help you save money. Zone deals. All right. This is where you pick a section and Game Time picks the seats for big savings. So here's what we're going to do. Snag the tickets without stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code INSIDESCOOP for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code INSIDESCOOP for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Those tier 1 groups. I think Oregon, Texas, I would even put now Alabama with that new staff from UW who is recruiting Marcus Harris extremely hard at Washington in that group. And then I think Tennessee's up there too. But I do think if I had to give up maybe a top 2 or 2 teams that are up there at the top, I would think Texas and Oregon are safe picks there. He has great connection with that staff. He's been to Austin multiple times. Same with Eugene. He has connections there. We saw Texas go into Modern Day and get Brandon Baker, an elite tackle, offensive tackle from Modern Day this last cycle in 2024. Oregon got Aiden Breland, Jack Wrestler, 2 players from Modern Day in 2024. He has connections to the staff. He likes the offensive scheme, the fit. So I don't know if Texas is the pick for the favorite today, the clear number 1, but they're definitely high on his list. They'll get him in the spring. They should get an OV as well. I think Oregon, they'll get obviously him in the spring. He already has that set up, and then back for an OV as well in the summer. I think those 2 are battling at the top, but other schools like Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, numerous other schools are in the mix. You mentioned USC, Josh. I'll touch on that. I do not think he stays home as of right now. I think he leaves the state of California, whether he stays on the West Coast with a school like Oregon or heads to the Midlands like Texas or goes all the way east like Alabama and the SEC. I do think Marcus Harris leaves his home state.
This is a recruitment that has been blowing up the last couple of months and turning into a national competition. Now, the next wide receiver we're going to talk about has been a national name for some time now, and that's Jaime Ffrench. He decommitted from Alabama. He's a 5-star wide receiver out of Jacksonville, Florida. And the news over the weekend was that he scheduled a bunch of out-of-state visits. In the months of March and April, he's going to see LSU, Ohio State, Texas, and Tennessee. Now, we know Ohio State is in this, if not arguably the leader right now for Jaime Ffrench. But who of these out-of-state teams are you giving a shot besides Ohio State?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think a lot hinges on these trips, Josh. I mean, right now, I'm not ready to say really anybody out of state is competing with Ohio State. I think the one team that is competing is the in-state school, Florida State. But going back to the out-of-state schools, I think he has communication with Bryce Underwood, the quarterback at LSU. He has communication with George McIntyre, the quarterback commit at Tennessee. The school maybe I've heard the most about that's on that list is Tennessee. That obviously intrigues him. It's closer to home. It's in the SEC. It's in the South, easy to get to. But I think a lot really hinges on how he feels on these different campuses, whether it be Baton Rouge, Austin, Knoxville. I know how he feels about the Buckeyes in Columbus at Ohio State. I think Brian Hartline is doing an excellent job there. Obviously, we got Jeremiah Smith last year, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, other guys from the Sunshine State at receiver in recent years. But I think I'm not ready to say really who the biggest competition with is Ohio State as far as out-of-state schools go until we take these trips and kind of see what kind of feedback I get.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you thought Florida State was maybe Ohio State's biggest competition when it comes to the in-state schools. Now, we know Miami and Florida also heavily involved. What is it about FSU? Is it location because he is down the street in Jacksonville, about 2 hours from Tallahassee? Or is it the fact that his quarterback is committed to FSU?
Yeah, quarterbacks are in his ear every day. Obviously, Tramel Jones is there at Mandarin. They played in the state championship together, been there in high school together the last few years. They have that not just friendship, but they had that quarterback-receiver relationship. So they know each other, the timing, all those little things make a big difference, a big impact. So I do think multiple reasons, though, that's why Florida State is, I think even who's committed to Alabama late in the process before he opened things back up, I felt Florida State maybe had the advantage. But since the January visits at school, things have kind of swung back towards Ohio State, and he backed off that pledge to Alabama. But I think Ron Dugans, Mike Norvell, Norvell, what he's doing at the program at Florida State, 13-0, ACC champions last year before the bowl game. You have Tramel Jones. And I think just the fact he sees the chance to go there, that Florida State will get the ball to their wide receiver one. If you're a Keon Coleman, you'll get the ball in crunch time. They'll go to you in the red zone. They'll feature you in that scheme. And that's what Jaime wants to be. He wants to be that Marvin Harrison. He wants to be that Malik Neighbors. He wants to be that Keon Coleman. That's what he's looking for as far as the featured in the college program, the college offense, also player development. NFL is the number one goal. But I think a lot of things help Florida State with Jaime Ffrench.
Yeah, this has big Jeremiah Smith vibes. It seems like it's Ohio State versus the big three in the state of Florida, and it's a battle to keep him in while Ohio State is the perceived leader, just like the way Jeremiah Smith's recruitment went. We'll see what happens. Now, of course, Jaime Ffrench not committed to Ohio State like Jeremiah Smith was, but there's a long way. We'll see what happens. Chad Simmons, thank you for dropping by today on the Inside Scoop. Appreciate you.
Yeah, man, anytime.
Thank you for watching this video. And if you enjoyed that, go check out the hundreds of videos that we have on this channel. And also do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel.